Welcome to another edition of Talking WIT Kevin Son, featuring the people you should know. Hi, my name is Kevin McLemore. I am your show host. I'm a four-time published author, an award-winning author, mentor, coach, and some of my friends call me a mindset messenger. I don't know where that came from. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is to give power to your voice, inspire, share stories and experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple. We want to create hope. And today, you've heard me say this before because I talk about a lot of successful people. Whatever your objective is, successful people like my guest today, they create a framework around their day-to-day life that not only enhances their life, but many times they pour into others. And this young person is giving back. Twofold. It's awesome. Our guest today, we will be talking about literacy. We'll talk about the WIT Institute, the Weatherspoon Institute and our WIT program. Today's guest has an extraordinary or extraordinary story, if I could say it that way. She has acted as a major producer for the city of Boston and as a songwriter, a poet, a playwright, and producer. Our guest has also performed and produced events for the likes of Michelle Obama, President Barack Obama, our first Black and only president, President Bill Clinton, the second Black president, if you want to say that, and the Secretary of State, Mr. John Kerry. She has also carried the torch, and she's been the bearer for the Martin Luther King Jr. Third, as well as hosted events by the legend Miss Patti LaBelle, Mr. Peebo Bryson, which when I was growing up, we opened for in Detroit, Michigan, and also the Boston Pop. I can go on all day long in the next 20 minutes talking about all the things our guest has done and is doing. But I'm going to cut this short, and I want to welcome to our show the talented, a person that everyone should know, the flame that burns in the middle of the night, the gift that God gave to all of us, Miss Alda Weatherspoon. I'm going to just call her Spoon during the interview. Spoon, welcome to Talking WIT Kevin and Son. How you doing?
I am humbled by that opening. Thank you so kindly for illustriously touting all the things that I've done. I'm just a humble servant of the people.
Well, let me tell you, it had taken me 20 minutes to go over the 20-year career that you've had, to go over every single accolade that you've done. And there's many things that you have started and done in Boston. And we'll probably talk about that too. But, I want to open up the show. And before we talk about the Weatherspoon Institute and the program and how you are combating and addressing literacy in the Boston area and your program, I want to know a little bit more about you. I want my guests to know a little bit more about you. Let's pull back the page a couple of years before. You grew up where?
In Boston, Massachusetts, in the town of Dorchester. I've bought the house that I was born in, actually. I've been here. My family's owned this house for 63 years. And I've lived other places in the world, but I came back for a visit, and 30 years later, I'm still here. It's like, oh dear. So Boston has a way of doing that to you. If you've come here for school and you started working, you go other places, don't come back for a visit because it'll put its, tassels around you and tie you down.
Well, it is definitely a beautiful part of the world that I see now. When I was growing up, coming to Boston, being a person of color, Boston wasn't exactly the most welcome place for someone that looked like me. And I think Mark Wahlberg grew up in Dorchester. Am I right?
He did, as well as Donna Summers.
All right. A lot of history in Boston. And did you also go to college in Boston also?
I did. I went to the University of Lowell, which is now UMass Boston.
All right. And I'm going to ask you a stupid question before we dive deep into something. What do you do for fun in Boston? What goes on in Boston?
Well, I was just telling you, we had a wonderful outing in Roxbury. A lot of Black-centric things tend to focus around Roxbury. It has an illustrious past in terms of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Both did a lot of work in that area. Malcolm X actually lived in Roxbury. So, but we had a street fair, and Slick Rick was here, and we had a bunch of fun at the black market. But beyond that, we have concerts, we have talent shows, we have, all kind of indoor, outdoor events. I think I'm getting ready to start a bowling league because I've gotten kind of boring. All I do is work, work, work. I need to get some playtime going here.
You've got to have some fun. I mean, I just came back from Vienna, and one of the things that I've learned, we work in order to live. They live, and work just happens to be part of that life. The whole town shuts down at 2:00, and everyone goes on a siesta or whatever they may call it during the course of a day. So I think we need to change the mindset. And speaking of mindset, I'm going to kind of segue from an event that just happened over the week. There's two WNBA events, games that were played. When during the game, there were objects. I mean, if you want to find out the details of these, look in the media, that were thrown on the floor because they were women. When we talk about literacy, all right, most of the time we talk about educating our young people, but there has been an attack or assault on our education, our history, and what the contents of what books should have and what it shouldn't have, and how we can have access to it. So when I talk about the state being under attack, our history being erased, why? I want to know, what do you think the grassroots of this problem is when it comes to our country and literacy?
Well, I think that, in the annals of time and history, the people who are in charge write history, right? So they try to take their mantle and make it into a fixture that projects onto themselves whatever their image is and whatever narrative they're trying to speak. And that's why I think that is so important for people of all backgrounds to take political office. And because here in the United States, it's more or less our royalty. It's not like king and queens and excuse me, in England and so forth. So the presidency and governorships and mayoralships, they really are our royalty in America as I see it. And so I think it's important for people who of color and people from different backgrounds need to take charge in that way so that all narratives are being spoken and all narratives are being projected.
Well, my grandfather used to tell me, he said, and I think you and I know the proper way that we say it in our homes. If you want to keep a secret,
put it in a book.
Put it in a book. Okay. I'm trying to figure out not to say it exactly the way my grandfather said it so people won't be offended, but you have to be honest. Why don't people read anymore? Why don't our young people read?
I think they do read, but they read little snippets. I think that they don't really read books unless there's some task assigned to it. But they read headlines, across their Google, because Google, if you're on there at all, and I know they are, it will spit it at you. If you're on, LinkedIn, it's coming at you. So I think they read little snippets of things. So I think that our headlines need to be really strong with a really good subtitle, because down in the paragraphs, they probably won't get that far. So whatever it is you want them to know, put it in a headline.
All right. You think social media is going to replace books? And can that information be trusted?
Well, that's why the Weatherspoon Institute, we started focusing on literacy. Before COVID, we were more focused on theater. I am a playwright as well. And the city of Boston had commissioned me to start a theater program and write a play, which is called Wise the Musical. And in the Wise the Musical, I wrote a storyline around African Americans and Latino and some Chinese kids. It's like very multicultural, and how they have innate normal powers within them, and how MIT took them in and started taking, like, say, if they could mind read, that they would teach them how telepathy worked and really work on that. And so I wrote some songs and I wrote dialogue and all this stuff. And one of them, one of the poems talked about, being empowered. It's called The Mitons. We're Mitons, we fightins. To reach the top, gravity we define. Ones who stand in our way, ourselves we case. Check what destroys our will to face. The hard, the mean, the wicked, the fiend. We quarantine to redeem our dream. We're Mitons. And when you put things in rhymes for children, they tend to glean towards that. So I wrote that, and I was going to have rehearsal the next time. And I was like, everybody pull out their papers on the Mitons. And they did, but they weren't looking at the papers. I was like, did you guys memorize this? And every single kid starting from 5 to like 15, they all knew all the words. I was like, wow. So I think that, our history should be fun to learn, that we have to do it in ways that engage our children. I do it a little bit through acting and through poetry and through song, because as long as they're entertained, they will retain that information and committed to memory. So I think that we have to start to find some more creative ways to attract our children to education, because, back in the day, we had certain benchmarks. We had certain formulas for kids to learn, but structure was more in place, I think, then. They went to church, they went to Sunday school, they were used to being in a classroom setting. They said a pledges of allegiance. There were certain things that were in place, including prayer. All of these things help one's mind to focus, to have, a certain level of 1, 2, 3 rhythmic, energy. And a lot of that is gone. And so the children really don't have a framework on which to hang things. And learning, I think, always needs a framework. So at the Weatherspoon Institute, we try to focus on learning in that way.
It's amazing the way that you preface what your statement, because I have always, and this is personal, all right, so I'm not speaking for everyone. I have always questioned the way that the formula of education is being taught in America. And the reason why I question it is because we are basically memorizing what's in a book and being tested on that information. And I know as an adult that I am a different type of learner. You can't put a book in front of me because of my learning disability. All the words, they get blurred. And I am not learning. Matter of fact, I was a junior in college before I learned how to read and write. I had gotten through school because I was a good athlete.
Wow.
And that's just what happens when you're special, or people deem you to be special. Should we all, the grading system, this is personal. I think we should get rid of A, B, C, or D's or F, because some of our most successful people were D and F students that are running Fortune 500 companies. Do you agree with the current level of education in order for our children and all of our children to be productive? Are we following the right standard, or should we be educating the child or educating a system for the child to fit in after graduation from high school?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you need some sort of structure that everybody understands and a goal that you're trying to reach. But how we get there, I think that we need to have an adaptive system where we're looking holistically at the group. So say a group class holistically, but then you got to break it down individually, because I've always taught the back of the class, right? You have the front of the class who, everything you put out there, that kid knows it. They got their homework going and all this other type of stuff. And the kid in the back of the class, he's, just scraping and crawling and, trying to get there. And he's often struggling. And so I teach to the back of the class so that everything that I'm teaching, everybody in the class is getting. And I always try to make sure that the kid that's smarter, I give them extra things to learn so that they're either engaged in helping another child to learn, so they're still engaged and they're not, spinning off to the either land. And I'm also, deeply interested in what they're interested in, and I feed whatever that is. So for instance, if that child's into science, I give them science books, I give them science projects, so that innate ability is being nurtured and being fostered. And likewise with the child in the back of the class, I begin to learn about that child and what that child's innate abilities are. Is that singing? Is that dance? What are their propensities? Because you have to understand, as you found out, in your educational experience, nobody was really focused on, what you were capable of doing and what your core was. And I think if you deal with the core of the child and you begin to work your way out, kind of like a target, because that a lot of my work focuses on target practice, as it were. So I do dart throwing, I do archery, all things are like how to focus your mind in the center, so that you begin to build a structure within yourself on which to hang things. So structure is important, but I think individuality needs to be addressed as well.
All right. So I want to segue to present day, and I want to thank one, Naheem Garcia and Otis Spencer for introducing me to you. You are what I would say politically correct, a shero, but you're a hero. Let's make it simple. You are a warrior. The Weatherspoon Institute. Tell us what your mission is, and tell us how that program works. How do we get involved in it? How did it get started? Let's go from there. Tell us about the Weatherspoon Institute.
All right. So 19 years ago, I began the Weatherspoon Institute as a give back to the community. At that time, I was director of public and private partnerships in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Tourism. And as you may imagine, I had a great deal of resources at my fingertips. But I'm always conscious of children in our community receiving resources that are available, because while there are a lot available, it may not be available to you. So I want to take the things that I was learning in that capacity and to give it to the children. And so I decided to do an institute that was based off of my grandfather's acumen. My grandfather, Albert L. Witherspoon, was from Little Rock, Arkansas, born and raised. And he was the owner of the Witherspoon Hotel, dry cleaner. He also owned a nightclub, a gas station, and the statewide newspaper called the Arkansas Press, which today you can go on the library system and actually look up all of the various editions of that. And you can learn more about him because his obituary is there, and it talks about some of the things that he did throughout the years. And so I wanted to pay homage to my lineage from Black Wall Street in Little Rock, Arkansas, and build an institute that taught leadership, etiquette, and at that time it was ballroom dance, because a lot of people don't know that Black dancers had a lot of narratives in ballroom dance, and I thought that that was an interesting way to talk about history, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and to engage the children, because as I may mention, I'm always looking for engagement. But as we evolved, I ended up doing theater along with that, where we do singing, dancing, acting, directing, and producing with the children. And so because of that, I began to have a lot of tenants into the community. And so a year ago, I decided to do a Weatherspoon Gala to celebrate our 18th anniversary. And I gave out a number of awards to the community based off of arts and culture. So it's a way to engage the rest of the community as well as the children. So we've been doing a lot of programming around elderly people as well. And last year, in addition to doing literacy, we started doing financial literacy. But I need to back up a little bit. So 19 years ago, we started the Weatherspoon Institute. Fast forward to pre-COVID, I'm at the Mathers School. It's an elementary school for children, and it's the oldest public school in America. And I, once again, was commissioned by the city of Boston to do this theater program. And I was called into the office. And so they said, you have to go, Miss Witherspoon. And I was like, what do you mean I have to go? My class isn't over. They said, no, the whole city is being shut down. And I was like, what's wrong? And they said, it's some health emergency. I don't know what it is. So come to find out, it was COVID. So at first I was teaching the kids in tents outside, and then online. And they kind of fell off of that, because as time went on and on and on, it was just difficult to do things online. But once COVID was over, we decided we needed to do a 20-person symposium on what the Weatherspoon Institute should be focused on now. Should we go back to Wise the Musical, or should we be doing something else? So we came up with this 66-page report. And on one of those pages was this word called post-COVID learning crisis. I was like, wow, that sounds kind of ominous, right? So I pulled up the covers on that, and come to find out, Harvard University, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, and Dartmouth put together a huge report that talked about how community-based organizations such as the Weatherspoon Institute needed to join forces with the schools and the parents to get the kids back on the learning track, because that 2.5 years of at-home learning was very spotty and they were like way behind. And we took up the mantle of doing literacy, because we figured we were already doing plays and poetry and all that type of stuff. So in fact, we were doing literacy really anyway, but we decided to really do a deep dive. And so we started doing collaborations with public libraries. And we began at the Boston Public Library. We then went to Little Rock's Public Library. And then last year we did a soft launch in New York at the Brooklyn Public Library. And they were very pleased with that and asked us to come back. So in April 2026, we will do a hard launch in New York City with a Get Lit literacy program.
All right. So policy and recommendations dictate what goes on. The Weatherspoon Institute, what are you doing, and what are your recommendations to address the disparity in education in your current area right now? And if you are successful, can these programs be adapted in other cities?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we also do with our literacy program is that we do social emotional learning. We also have an act out tenet to it, as well as actually reading the book. So, and then of course we have a physical aspect of it. So we do exercise, and then we do the social emotional learning, which is basically the psychology behind learning. So it teaches the children how to focus their mind and their spirit and their bodies in one place, so that you can actually sit down, put your feet down, and focus on what you're doing. And a lot of work we do around is how to focus your mind, how to focus your spirit, how to focus your body, so that when you are taking in information, that not only can you absorb it, but then you can also retain it. And then we do this portion called Act Out, which is basically taking the storyline and putting it into physical, three-dimensional reality. So taking it off of the page and having the kids actually act it out, so that, they embody the information as well. Again, a really strong learning tool on how to retain and also engage children, because a lot of times around all this jumping around and all that, they want to give you pills to, make your kids sit down and be quiet. It doesn't really have to do with that. It has to do for people of color. Very often it's that warrior mandingo, energy coursing through your blood. I mean, we're people who are very strong and, very engaged, and, we go get it. We're go-getters. That's what it is. And so they just need to learn how to focus that. It's a matter of training it. It's not a matter of dousing it or dumbing it down. And so I don't really believe in giving children drugs around that type of thing. But also, we set down very hard rules. When you come in, you put your coat over there, you come sit down over here, You meditate from this hour to this hour. We're going to read from this hour to this hour. We're going to dance from this hour to this hour. So they understand what the structure is, what is expected of them. And also that, we write reports. We're going to be writing down what you're saying. We're going to be meeting with your mother. We're going to be meeting with your coach. We're going to be meeting with all the people that are around you so that everybody's on the same page and we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. I think a lot of it has to do with communication and setting strong guidelines, because children really do like structure. They want to know what it is that they're doing. And as long as everybody agrees, and we do have an agreement that this is how it's going to go and this is how we're going to behave, that, everything, it pretty much stays on course.
You sound a lot like my grandfather, and I call this a Deion Sanders moment. My grandfather said when I had my first child, he says, you need to understand this. He says, your child needs to know what the rules are. The second thing is, he says, they need to know what the consequences are. And the third thing, the child needs to know that you're going to carry out those consequences consistently every single time. And that's one of the things when I say this is a Deion Sanders moment, you just outlined exactly what he did at Jackson State University and how he's been successful there. And then he transferred that over on a world platform of all cultures to the University of Colorado, if I got that right. That's a Deion Sanders moment. But I do want to ask you this. This is leading off because you're a lot smarter than me, especially. I got two things that I want to ask. I need an explanation. Then I'm going to ask you, how do we get in touch with you? What is social emotional learning, for one?
Social emotional learning is the psychology behind learning. And it's teaching the children how to learn, not what to learn, but how to learn.
All right. The next one is a conversation that I hear almost daily, and it's attacked. And when you ask the question, and these are from educated people, no one seems to have the answer, but I'm pretty sure you know the answer. What the hell is woke?
I struggle with that myself. I'm like, what do they mean about this woke? Supposedly it means that you're enlightened, that you understand your history, that you have taken some tenets of your history and are applying it to the tenets of today. So, for instance, when I talked about that Mandingo warrior, that you have studied that, and understand that the spear, in hand and the hunting and the huntress is a part of your DNA, and how to handle that, how to utilize that course in your veins to work for you today. That's how I see woke.
All right. I'm going to go to the second half of our program, but before we go to that, I want to ask. I'm enjoying the living crap out of this. Not exactly how I want to phrase it, but I'm going to say it there because there may be some young people listening to this. How do we get in touch with you? I know some people want to know how to get in touch with you, and they're probably going to ask you, where's your books at? And we'll talk about that too. How do we get in touch with you first?
Yes. So we are online. We have a website called the Weatherspoon Institute.org. So, of course, it's www.witherspoon.org, not com, because if you hit com, you're going to get to the Weatherspoon Institute in New Jersey, which is a political action, institute. We are not that. We are based out of Boston and New York. So if you hit the one with org on it, it's, we're a nonprofit, right? So you will come to the Weatherspoon Institute.org. Just want to make that distinction. Secondly, you can call us at 855-WIN-ARTS, WINARTS. And also you can email me at Alda, ALDA, the number 1.witherspoon@gmail.com. And Witherspoon is spelled WITHERSPOON.
All right, I'm glad you corrected it because I've been writing it with WH. All right, so I got to correct myself on that. It's WITHERSPOON. All right. See, that's what happened. You got ADHD. You see letters differently. Now, I also know, all right, we're in August 2025. We're on a podcast. You're not supposed to date yourself, but you've got some upcoming events. And the one thing that no program can exist is with the lack of support from the community. September, you have a program. Let's talk about that. And I think November, October, and I think I'm coming to one of those. Tell us about the programs that you have upcoming so people could either register, sign up, donate, participate, or whatever. What do you need?
Yes, indeed. So we are hosting our 19th anniversary celebration called the Weatherspoon Gala, celebrating arts and culture. So it starts off as a garden party outside of the Boston Public Library. And then we go inside and we give out a number of awards. We also have a visual arts display that is sprayed upon all the ceilings and all the mantles and everywhere. It's quite an illustrious, electrifying feat. And then on the second floor, we are hosting our gallery that we were pleased to open last year. It was a historic opening last year, the gallery. And the gentleman is called Jamil Radcliffe, who is a fantastic portrait person who has watercolors and also oil painting. So we will be opening up an exhibit for him at the Roxbury Public Library from September through January. So that's happening on September 22nd. It's from 3 to 7 p.m. It is donation based. So it's not, we do have tickets, and you would go on Eventbrite to get those. And you can simply type in the Weatherspoon Gala on, any platform and it'll pop right up through Eventbrite and you can get your tickets that way.
All right. So you heard that. And I'm going to say it's going to be a good time. For those of you guys are listening, please make note. I'll give you the email and how to get in touch with Spoon thereafter, and we'll continue the conversation. When you talk about the moral and character of our schools and the curriculum and our civic responsibility, I know a good friend of mine wrote a book that says, "Without integrity, you have nothing." And that book was by Carl Eller. The late Carl Eller. He was the owner of Arizona Cardinals. When you talk about moral and character and even integrity in our curriculum system, there seems to be a disparity between the private funded schools versus public the school system. What do you recommend? How do we create a balance to where that every child is provided with the same level of education, to provide the same level of opportunity in order to have the same level of life? How does your institute create a foundation for hope?
So I think that there's always been a line between the haves and the have-nots. I mean, let's just be realistic. I mean, there are schools that, kids go off to Switzerland for 4 years and barely see their parents. And, they're inundated with all kinds of masterful ways on how to run the universe, while they're gone. I mean, that's just what it is, right? But in the public school settings, I think that parents have to stay deeply engaged and involved in their children's education. They have to watch the system and just make sure that if that system, is failing them, that they fill in the gaps, because the person that teaches you the most, generally it's your mother first and it's your father second and your aunties and uncles, have to come in and I truly believe in a village raising your child. It has to do with, getting your kids in the YMCAs and the Boys and Girls Club. And, you have to be in charge of your child's education. Do not leave it up to the system to dictate what your child is going to be learning. You need to look at the books that they're sending home. If there are gaps in that information, you need to fill those holes yourself and take them to the library. Get them a tutor if they, need additional support. And I really believe in tutoring. Tutoring is one of the biggest things I think that every child should actually have. I mean, I don't think there's any child that is too smart or little known that couldn't use a tutor. There are always gaps in people's knowledge that, could be filled. So I think that you should try to make sure you have an academic mentor as well as a spiritual mentor, as well as a social mentor. So I say that we should have what I call like the child is a business, right? So they have a board of directors. And in that board of directors, you have, like I said, you have your political leader, you have your social leader, you have your religious leader, you have your social leader, you have your sports people, and you set up your child's life that they have, support around them. So again, any system that's put out on the planet has its, shortcomings and it has its successes. But you as a parent need to stay in charge of your child's education and make sure your child is surrounded by the right people so that they can find success.
Now, I'm going to ask you because I know when you have a nonprofit company, you're always needing assistance. I don't know if the city of Boston is helping you or adding funds to it. I don't know if your community in Roxbury is doing that or if the citizens of Boston is funding you. Where are you getting your resources from and where do you need help? And how do I'm telling you right now to call some people out and say, help me.
I need folks to please tell me who I need to talk to about funding, because it's always a struggle, like my time gets spent too much on trying to find money instead of focusing on children. And I don't really like that paradigm, because we're small, we have big ideas and we're in a lot of places, but it's basically me at the core of that. So if people want to, to give me a couple of hours a week to make some phone calls or to write a grant, or know where some grants are funded, because one of the things that I have found out about grants is that people give grants to people they know or who they've been referred to. Very often when you just send in a grant because it sounds really good and ... those folks don't know you. If they haven't been referred to you, then you generally don't get that funding. So if a parent, knows of an organization that they've been, akin to, and they want to recommend us to to that institute, I would welcome that. Likewise, any business folks who may be listening to your podcast, and I hope that they are because you do some wonderful work. Please give us a call and either have your people volunteer, come be engaged. A lot of times folks will start off giving us $500, then they'll give us $1,500, and a year or two later they'll start giving us $5,000. A lot of times it grows as the relationship grows and the belief in your organization grows. The money grows with it. We do get some money from the city of Boston. They're generally in $5,000 increments, which helps for a season, but it's not giving me the longevity. I can't look 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 years out. I'm in a cycle right now where I need to get out of so that, I can project out, where we're going financially. I always manage to make it, but again, it's an Achilles heel. Like, how much more could I give to our children, excuse me, if I'm focused more on the work than I am on finding the money to fund the work. So to those persons who have, contacts or who want to roll up their sleeves themselves, we welcome it. A lot of our work is done by our WIN moms. We have a whole group that's called the WIN moms. And I'll tell you, I couldn't get nearly the things done that I do have done without those WIN moms, because they believe in us, and they pour their heart and soul into us. And they're really the bloodline of the Weatherspoon Institute. So I really want to take this time to thank our WIN moms for being there for us. But we do need help from the public at large and the business community. So please help us.
And I appreciate the way that you phrase that. And believe it or not, we have an incredible group of people that follow this podcast. I'm probably one I'm probably the only person in here that ends my show. And when we talk about, because every podcaster, three things, every influencer, we want you to like, comment, or subscribe. And I'm probably the first person that says that when I'm building my business, I surround myself with like-minded people. All the people that I have in my circle are people that have a high call to action. They don't drive by an accident, they stop to help. And I always say, please reserve the likes, the comments, and the follows for people that want to get involved. I've been successful enough within, actually, today is my fourth year, August 4th, is my fourth year doing this podcast. And I've had 7 people that I've asked one question that has volunteered to help change someone's life, and I'll be asking you that. But I want to have a little fun. I want to peel back another layer of your life, because you have a 28-year-old son. Yes. And I know with my youngest son, he brings up the word didactic. And I'm going, where'd you learn that from? He says, well, Dad, a lot of times you're always preaching to us and you're not a preacher. And the pastor of my church, I always say that I'm a warrior because I back down from no one. And he says I was a disciple. He says, because you're spreading not only the word of God, he says you're making an impact on other people. And so the first impact that we make, and this is all of us, and the first person that we destroy or make a mistake with is our children. So you have a 28-year-old son, and I'm going to say happy birthday to this young man because he just had a birthday. He's a Leo. But I want to say, if I were to ask your son the one piece of advice that you've given to him that he carries with him daily, what would you think that would be?
Be your authentic self.
All right. So even as adults, we become students, and sometimes our children become the best teacher. If I were to reverse that question, it says the one piece of advice or statement your son has made to you, what would your son say to you?
Hire somebody to do your laundry.
Oh.
That's what he just told me that last night. He was like, Mom, you're always working. He was like, just hire somebody to do your laundry.
That's all right. That is funny. That's better than the one time I asked one of my guests what was their parents' favorite thing, and he said the phone. So, I got to be careful how I ask these questions. So in these programs like your programs, most people call these grassroots movements. And they definitely have an immediate impact on communities. And some there's a distraction from the programs in the communities itself. And I mentioned it earlier on, okay, these programs like yours, they need help. What's the future of your program, the WIN program? Where do you want to go from here?
Well, eventually I want to talk about the books, right? I really see the books probably being some sort of driving mechanism behind my nonprofit. Before, I think the driving mechanism was when I was working for the city as a public art director. But I now see my writing probably as a driving tool behind. So I really need to put my books out. I think that they will be pretty successful, I hope, and continue the conversation. One is, and it's done. I just haven't put it out. It's called The Seed of My Whisper. And it's a bit of a biographical sketch of my life because it starts off with poetry that I wrote when I was 11 years old and, comes all the way up to present day. It also has in prose. So I've kind of looked at my life in various different ways and put it into prose. And it also has my plays in it. So I was also poet laureate for the city of Boston for 19 years. So it has a great deal of poetry around Martin Luther King because we did a lot of celebrations around him and what his legacy was in Boston, of course, because he was such a noted figure, and people tend to follow him. So it was a good way to get history in the conversation in Boston. So we did a great deal of work around that. And we did a lot of work around the people who were in the civil rights era. So it was a good way to bring in the Jesse Jacksons and folks of that nature to, talk about that historical perspective. We also, had people like Maya Angelou and that kind of thing come and speak as well. And so it was a way to really talk about the history. And so that's in the book as well. So it's really kind of a bit of a autobiographical portion, but people say I need to put more of my background in it as opposed to letting my work on poetry and lyrics and plays speak to my background. So I'm considering that, but I almost think that's a separate book. But the second book that I've written is called AKA Spoon, which is a novel take on my grandfather, Albert Weatherspoon, who in the 20s and 30s and 40s would go up to this place called Hope, Arkansas, which was the precursor to Nevada in Las Vegas. So it had all these big hotels. It was also the birth of Black Wall Street. It was also the birth of the baseball spring training. First was in Hope, Arkansas, before they moved it to Florida. It also had a really interesting dichotomy around Black and white America. So on the one hand, they had mafioso people who went there for vacation. So they had Bumpy Johnson, Al Capone on one side, and they had the Bumpy Johnson on the other side. And this was a place of peace. So if you had a beef with somebody in New York or Chicago or LA, you squashed the beef, you went there, you got your massages, you bathed in the salts, and, people went and saw baseball, people went to the Black Broadway, they had all the luminous people there from, Bojangles to Lena Horne and all of that. And so it was a place of respite, right? And my grandfather would go there on vacation, true fact. But there is a historical byline there that someone broke the code around that, and they killed a sheriff there. And I kind of wove my grandfather into that storyline where they had they called him Spoon, as a matter of fact. They had Spoon go look for the people, the culprits behind that. And he was like, wait a minute, what? I'm not that guy. And they said, you are that guy. Remember, you are the biggest maitre d' in Little Rock, where all the governors and all the mayors and all the big impressive people from the region go. So you know everybody's business and you know everyone. So you definitely are that guy, and they won't see you coming. So he calls up his clan, the Witherspoon clan, of which there is 8 of them. It's a very colorful background. Like one was and this is true story. One was a farmer. One was a bootlegger. One was a hitman. My grandfather, he was a businessman. And the girls, they did a lot of the farming and lending money is what they did down in Hope, Arkansas. So they brought the clan to town to help him figure out this big puzzle, this big murder mystery. So this book is called AKA Spoon, and I finished that too. And I'm actually looking for an editor, because while I think the story is good, I don't think it's ready. And I think if I had a good editor who understood, that kind of storyline, that it would be that much better. Until I find a good editor to do that, I'm going to hold that book. So if you know anyone who might be interested in helping me edit it and get it out on the street, I'm hoping that those proceeds I could then pour back into my nonprofit. So that's one way of, getting the foundation moving in a better direction, I hope.
I am so glad you tied that up the way that you tied it up, because I was about to smack your hand. Because first I was gonna lecture you on the fact that, and Les Brown says this. He says, when you ask where some of the most famous playwrights, one of the most beautiful screenplays has ever been, a song that should be heard by around the world. And he says, your best educators, your teachers, your inventors, he says, they all are housed in one place. He says, the best of the best. And I said, where? He says, in the cemetery. Because what happens is you take those dreams that you have when you talk about, I have a book and it's finished already. And remember, I just said, I only surround myself with people with high call to action. Everyone that I know that's talked about writing a book, the book is out in the world. And believe it or not, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to give you a name of an editor. Okay.
Yay!
That will get you, because she gets me. So I'm going to give you Judy Fennell's information. And
wonderful.
we're going to call you out on that, because there's no excuse for you to have a book out and it not be out. Now, the one thing that we've got to understand, we've got to create a program once we get that book, because you just mentioned a couple of books that they're trying to take off the shelves in that story. Because when we go back to that woke situation, now that I understand what it means, is that the part of history that you're trying to tell, people want to spin the truth in order for the truth to be their truth and not the actual truth itself. So, and that's what education is. What did my grandfather say? He said, education is not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think.
I love that.
So, I'm going to help you with that book. So, I've had a great time with you. I want to go ahead and ask, how do we get in touch with you? How do we get involved with your program, the Weatherspoon Institute? How do we get involved? How do we donate? All right. And in the event that I would like to have you come and speak, how do we get in touch with you?
Yes. So 855-WIN-ARTS is our telephone number. And you can email me as well, alda1.witherspoon@gmail.com. And again, Witherspoon is spelled Witherspoon, and Alda is spelled ALDA. So alda1.witherspoon@gmail.com. And we do have a website, www.witherspoon.org, not com.org. And we actually are on Facebook as well. And we do have a YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel has a lot of snippets from all of the things that I've spoken about. It's got some of my poetry on there. It's got, www.aldawitherspoon.com has a lot of that stuff on there. So if you're interested in my personal, the books and the plays and that type of stuff, go to my website, aldawitherspoon.com. But for the Weatherspoon Institute stuff, that's the witherspooninstitute.org.
All right. I have a list of 100 people that are extremely successful. And when I say that I've have added a group of people to that, I'm not talking about your bank account. I'm not talking about how many Oscars you have won, how many Grammys you have won, and how many millions you have in the bank. When I talk about success, my success is always when you pour into other people, when you give back. So, but I also know there's a downside to being successful. So I'm going to ask you, how do you not feed your distractions, or what distracts you?
A good TV show distracts me. I do have to say, I love stories, whether it's oral, whether it's on stage, whether it's on TV, whether it's a movie. My son and I were movie buffs. We go to the movies all the time. That can kind of distract me a little bit, but it also feeds back into what I do. So it's kind of a cyclical thing, which is kind of cool. By my being a, poet, playwright, singer, songwriter, actor, and producer. So it kind of feeds both ways, but that's what I do get distracted by, because I love a good story.
Right. I know for me, I'm big on quotes, and I talk to myself all the time. So there's two parts. I'm going to ask you, you carry something with you, and every Sunday I have a show, Naheem and those guys will tell you, Motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends, and we talk about quotes and how we interpret or perceive those. Give me one of the quotes you kind of carry with you that becomes part of your mantra.
I live magic every day, every moment of every hour.
All right.
So I'm constantly calling forth, creative energy and, intellectual energy and physical energy to me to keep me humming.
Okay. What about gratification? Delayed or immediate?
Definitely delayed. I
Wow.
haven't been on vacation. I can't tell you when. I'm like so deeply engrossed in getting the Weatherspoon Institute to the next level that that's all I think. That's all I do. That's all I talk about.
All right. And the reason why I ask that question, especially with successful people, and this has been consistent, every successful person that I've ever asked that question has answered the same thing. And when I talk to young people, there's immediate, fast money. They want to get this now. They want to have the big car now, the big house, and whatever the case may be. And, you remember the saying, I mean, you have your faith. God, um, what is it? God gives those who waits, or
Mm,
God gives it to you whenever He thinks you deserve it. And
mm,
I'm a firm believer is that it's just like a bamboo tree. Okay, you have to build the foundation and do the work. My
mm.
grandfather, I'm going to say this again. My grandfather said, "There's no virtue where there's not presence of sweat," and it takes 5 years in order to start to reap the fruits of your benefits. So that delayed gratification, when it actually happens, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make a difference if it happens now or it
Mm-hmm.
happens 5 years from now. The fact is that you put in the work, it happens. Because a lot of times, immediate gratification is like you get it too fast, you lose it faster. All right.
And part of
So,
it too for me is that I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying every single moment of every day as I'm getting there. So once I get to that plateau, there's another plateau to get to. And then there's another one. Then there's another one. So that just keeps going up and up and up for me. But while I'm doing it, I try to make sure my day is filled with joy, that I bring joy to people and that I surround people that bring me joy as well. I love to laugh. I love a good joke. I love to play little jokes on people and, plan little events, for people to come to and to go to both personally as well as collectively, large groups of people, because I think that, we are our brother's keeper. And if that is the case, then, I want to make sure your life is filled with joy.
all right. Do you do self talk when you find yourself in those spaces?
I do. I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of meditating. Like, so for the mantra for our Get Lit program, we say, ignite your light, read, write, get lit, get lit, get lit, get lit.
That's all right. And so I can't follow anything better than that, but I will try. I will try. I brought it up earlier. Out of 4 years, we had 7 people's lives have been changed by asking me this question. So if you had one ask, I don't want someone to take my Ohio tone to my voice and put double S on it. It's ask. One ask, or if you have one dream to come true, and someone in my listening audience can be part of that dream to help you make it come true. And I want you to think about this for a little bit, and then I'm going to ask you to actually think big. All right,
Mm-hmm,
don't just
mm-hmm.
say I like to do this. I had a young lady says, I would like to have a seat by Oprah, and I'm going, that's the weakest ask that I ever had. She goes, well, why? And I said, let me explain to you. I put 9 chairs up there, and I put one chair behind Oprah. You got your ask.
Mm,
Okay. If you want to sit down and have a conversation with Oprah or have Oprah mentor you and whatever, that's a different type of ask. All right.
mm.
Be specific when I ask you your ask. And here it goes. All right. Miss Alda with
Mm-hmm.
a queen. Okay. Game changer. Like I said in the very beginning, that light that burns in the middle of the night that people follow. All right.
Mm.
You are the voice of a community. You're the heart and soul of a dreamer. All right. You are the reason why air exists. So if I ask you that one ask, what would it be?
Right now, my big dream is to turn AKA Spoon into a movie. That's what I want to do.
All right, then let me.
Because in that process I can train kids, in the arts. I can train the community, how to do that. So I'm doing skill building as well as business building, and we're actually getting our stories out, our historical perspective, and we'll be able to feed back to our nonprofit. So if I could have a dream come true, it would be, to have AKA Spoon turn into a movie.
All right. Do you want someone else to write the screenplay? Because you're a playwright. You can write it yourself.
Right. Yeah, I definitely could write it. I probably want somebody else to direct it. A lot of times I have people direct my stuff, mostly because I like to see my words come to life, and I like to kind of sit back and watch that unfold. But I probably could direct it myself too, but I definitely would like to write the screenplay.
All
Or
right.
at least co-write it.
All right. Let's get started. Let's get your books published. I'll introduce you to Judy. Let's start outlining your screenplay so we know your story, and visually we'll bring it together. And I don't know how much Naheem has told you. Right? Naheem and I have already started to produce a screenplay right now, an animated thing. So we are starting a production company, and I'm working with a couple of guys from Detroit Lions that we're starting a media company. So
Nice.
Dreams could come true.
Hey, I'm actually looking for a publicist too. If you know of any publicists who wouldn't mind helping me, I would appreciate that.
I will keep an eye out for this. Matter of fact, I just met someone from BET. I don't know exactly what they do. I think they're an event planner, but I will ask. I'm pretty sure someone knows. So to my listeners, is there anything, because I hate to leave meat on the bone, okay? Normally, this podcast is normally, 35 to 45 minutes long. We ran a little longer, only because I enjoyed the conversation. And for those of you that have a short attention span, I say watch this in 2 parts, but enjoy. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you want to leave with our listeners that we should have mentioned before we sign off?
I would just like to leave it at this. Spend a good portion of your day in meditation. Keep your eyes focused on the center of your spirit, and feed that throughout the day. Water that throughout the day, because from your core comes everything, and everything comes unto you. What you put out also comes back to you. So as long as you're staying in good stead, you're meditating on, the good things in life. If you're a religious person, you can relate to your Bible. If you're haven't really had the religiousness around you, you can also do mantras or positive affirmations. But keep your spirit in well stead. Keep it calm. Keep it focused. You're responsible for yourself and the other people around you. Keep your energy, in a positive light.
All right. I want people to sip on that like a glass of fine wine. If you don't indulge in wine, think about a hot summer day, and Grandma just made that nice peppermint tea that you sitting on there and drinking that in that mason jar, the way I grew up in that when she made peppermint tea. So this is what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to leave you with this. And I've repeated myself over and over: to grow, you've got to make some mistakes. To have confidence, you must address your anxieties. To forgive yourself, you must hold yourself accountable. To learn, you must unlearn some stuff. And to exist, you have to show up every single day as more than you did yesterday. But you also have to understand the power of your words. Your words will either build or destroy something. All right? These are notes from what my friends call the mindset messenger. I hope, to all my listeners, and I want to thank you for supporting me over these years. And I didn't realize until we were talking that this was the 4th year of me doing this podcast. I actually moved you up in order to have this interview in front of a couple other people to do this. So please forgive me. Matter of fact, they don't even know I did that. I just did it. So I'm outing myself. But to my listeners, I want to say thank you. If you like what you've heard, you can find us on our YouTube page at RMK Productions and Network. If you want to be a guest or you want more information, go to info@rmkproductions.org. Fill in the information thing on the tab, and we'll be more than happy to get in touch with you and talk about you becoming possible a guest on the show. And to you, Spoon, if you have someone that has a story to be told, someone that's impacting the community, that's making a difference in their community, I would love to have them as a guest on my show. So please be more than happy, because the nice thing about this, within the last 2 years, I have never had to ask for a guest to be on my show. They've all come from referrals. So like-minded people do stay around like-minded people. And so to my listeners, we're coming to that time that we have to say, I won't say goodbye. I say to the next time. My grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life, in your life, that you can help someone else, do what my guest does. It's your duty to do so. My grandfather said, reach one, teach one. And with that said, we'll fade to black and we're out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Spoon. Miss Alda Weatherspoon. Thank you. All right. Support the WIT Institute in Boston, Mass. Bye-bye.